Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Nashville, Tennessee, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to lovely Nashville, the home of rock and roll. I'm here with...
I believe country music was popular there.
Well, isn't it rock? You know what? The thing about Nashville is once you get off the plane, everybody's dressed like they're like the next Elvis. Like that's the vibe here. Like I'm about to become the next Elvis. I can feel it. It's like a whole thing. Kaustubha. And I'm here with Yogeshwari, Cindy Lunsford, and we're about to start a road trip. I taught yesterday in Nashville. Today, I'm going to see a bunch of Zoomer others in Evansville, Indiana, including Armar. I'm going to Jen Yoga 101. I'm going to see the mad professor, Crystalline, at the university. I'm teaching at the university, Kaustubha. What do you think about that?
Amazing.
I'm teaching at the university. I'm an honored guest at the university. I'm telling my mom. Yes, mother.
Get a tweed coat and a pipe and walk in there.
No, I'm going to get a monocle. Yes, a monocle, a top hat, and I'm going to take a photo speaking from the podium at the university. Why does it always
have to be Mr. Peanut?
That's my idea of dressing up, looking like Mr. Peanut. And I'm going to send a photo with a big University of Indiana behind me and send it to my mother. I was like, no, mother, I did not go to university. You're correct. But now they are asking me to lecture here. Oh, mother. Never quite fulfilled her dreams of going to the... If you only went to college, you might have turned out okay. She'd actually said this to me once. Mm-hmm. She said, you know, when your father got sick, I just sort of gave up on you. I was like, oh. She's like, yeah, that's where I went wrong. I was like,
let it go, Raghunath.
I was like, I'm standing right here, Mom. You don't have to share your inner thoughts with me.
Let it go, Raghunath.
It's okay.
We accept you just as you are.
What do you mean by what does he mean by that, Mara? Just as broken and
no, just as you are.
Anyway, I feel like dressing a little crazy because I'm here in Nashville.
Okay, Raghunath. I get it that you've landed in Nashville and you're full of all different kind of banter directions that you could go in. But you've done that for a bit now. Right? And now we'll turn to Mara and say, Mara, are there any announcements today?
We do have some announcements. There's a Bhakti recovery group meeting at 1 p.m. today. Seth Lieberman is offering his Harmonium meetup group for our Patreon members this Sunday at noon.
Sounds so fun, the Harmonium meetup, doesn't it? A meetup?
Yeah.
Everyone brings their harmonium.
Exactly.
Meets up
Bring
at
your harmonium to
Starbucks.
Zoom. And then also we have no show tomorrow, and we're going to do our Q&A day on Sunday.
Why don't we have a show tomorrow?
Because of you,
Because you,
my
Raghu.
friend.
Oh, because I have to be on the road early in the morning.
Yeah.
We're on road trip. I love road trips. Guess what I'm going to do today?
Here we go.
Guess
Go
what
on a
I'm
road trip?
Well, I was invited by mm,
Yes.
it's of Float Center. ISO Float Center. I'm gonna float today, Kaustubha. Have you ever floated?
Oh, you're going to one of those float? No, I've never done.
Going to a float tank.
Oh.
I'm so excited about this. I didn't tell Cindy yet. Cindy, do I have time to float today? No, in Indiana. I was right down next to Yoga 101. There's a float center. Oh no, now she's saying there's no time. I really want to float.
Maybe you should do the next show from the float center.
Live from outer. It feels like I've heard it feels like outer space. I might freak out. No?
Anything's possible, Raghunath. Anything's
Okay.
possible in there.
Anyway, looking forward to seeing everybody. And then Atlanta. Looking forward to Atlanta. And then back here, we have a big kirtan here.
Okay.
And you know what I'm getting, Mara? From the devotees from that farm are coming. What's the name of their farm? Murari Sanctuary. I'm
Ooh,
getting
bring back
their.
some ghee.
I'm getting the Ahimsa ghee.
Oh, nice.
Great. Yeah. So,
You're
Akiko
going
San,
to
she
the farm?
says love floated. No, they're coming. They're coming
Okay.
to the kirtan.
I wonder if Krishna is coming. It's a friend of mine.
Krishna.
She's been living there. Yeah. Krishna.
Krishna. Do you know Krishna? No, we don't know. There's another farm. It's not that farm.
Well,
Alrighty. Well, enough of my shenanigans. By the way, everybody's saying they like floating. Kevin Shenanigan says it. I love floating, Akiko-san says. And AJ Sullivan says a bit trippy, for sure. All right. You ready to dive into this? Oh, no. You want a nugget? You want a nugget, Kaustubha? I got a nugget
give
for
me a
ya.
nugget.
Hit me with your nugget. What you
Where's it from?
This is from Pericles. Maybe you've heard of him. It's something we study at the University of Indiana.
Greek
Pericles,
philosopher.
Greek thought, Greek thinker. What
What
you
does he
leave
say?
behind. Do you think is like were there just like more philosophers in Greece?
Well, they I don't know if there were more of them, but they established an important philosophical school, I suppose, or tradition.
What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone. What you leave behind is not
Monuments.
what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. I needed to hear this today.
Drop a heart.
I needed to drop a heart if you like this one. What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments.
Mhm.
I'm always shocked when I go to a graveyard and see some people write something like nothing. I was like, say something. You're gonna put up just your date of birth? Say something. Leave a message for the world. What's your reflection of life? But here it's saying, even if you do write something in stone, it's not what you write in stone.
Mhm.
It's what you've woven into the lives of others.
Okay. Just
Be
share
a-
your thoughts on it.
Hashtag be a weaver.
Okay. Be a weaver.
Weave love into the lives of others. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I
Weave
like
love.
it. And I think you could look at this statement two ways, right? In other words, one, it has to do with like what you leave behind, but it also has to do with what others have left behind in you, right? Like others have, what we are made of has been woven by the contribution of others. True. But I do find it interesting, and we're finding it in Bhagavatam so much. This idea that one's spirituality, right, the depth of one's spirituality has a lot to do with how you relate with others. You could say it's reflected in or shown through how you relate to others, or also it's like cultivated through your relationships with others, right? Like we've been discussing those three verses from the 11th canto. The first one describes the three different levels of one's depth of one's spirituality, right? And the first one is, I recognize God in the temple. God I have no problem with, right?
It's all these other people.
Yes, it's everybody else that I have a problem with, and so
It's called the
that's
Kanishta, right,
Kanishta,
Maren? The Kanishta.
yeah, neophyte. It's just
New Jack.
newbie,
Newbie.
rookie.
Rookie. Don't be a rookie.
It's So in other words, that's Bhagavatam's coming out and saying that is not a very. It's good. You know,
Good, you believe
congratulations.
God. Good for you.
Yeah,
But
but it's lacking, right? It's very superficial. It's just a very beginner's spirituality. And then the next stage where you're really cultivating is that where you're kind of you're very conscious of respecting people on all different levels, right? That's a person that's like they've got some traction in their spiritual life. And then that highest level is where you're kind of just seeing the spiritual essence of everyone.
yeah.
But
Mara, what's the middle one called, Mara?
Madhya.
Ooh.
There you
Want
boom,
to hear something
yeah.
crazy, Kaustubha? Cindy Lunsford and Mara
Yeah.
both went to private school.
Okay.
They both studied African studies and lived in Africa.
Okay.
They both
Field
were the
hockey.
captain of the field hockey team.
Get out.
And Mara's about to buy a RAV4, and she's got a and Yogeshwari's got a RAV4. Is this crazy?
It's interesting.
It's like they're parallel lives.
Interesting.
Very
And somehow they've both been woven into your life, Raghunath.
They've woven love into my life, these two. Anyway, that's thought that was interesting. Yeah, you know, I always say this thing about the nugget, back to the nugget, trying to keep
Okay.
focused, is
Yes.
forget woven in stone. We try to create our identity from our stuff. You know, we always say like we're not our body, you know, meaning I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm not straight or gay. These things are partial realities. Real reality is I'm a spirit soul, but I externalize my identity by not just my body, but sometimes by my clothes I wear. We identify with this. Oh, I would never wear that because I'm this guy who wears this type of clothing. I shop at J. Crew, or I shop at Gucci, or I shop at. When we externalize our identity to be our clothing or our fashion, sometimes we externalize our identity to being a political party, or sometimes we externalize our identity to be our career, and we lead with that. I'm a doctor. Or I went to Indiana University. Actually, is my alma mater, or whatever. We extend our identity to an institution, a state. Right? I'm a New Yorker. That's a big one. I'm a New Yorker. We extend, but we're not what we have. We're not what we possess. We are. Is what I say. Tell me what you. I like this one. We are in this world our contribution. That's what we actually are. We are our contribution, that we are a spirit soul that is born to give love while we're here. And when it's misdirected, we just love mammon. We love things of this world, which sort of break our heart eventually. But eventually we're supposed to repose that love in God. And that is what we want to leave on the world. We can't everything else of this world can be taken away from us. Our so-called partial identities can be taken away, but our desire to give love is always there unless we take it away. And that is what we can contribute. That's what we will leave behind. No one gives a crap about our car when we die.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be misunderstood the way you phrase it, though, because if you say "I am my contribution," then like it makes it sound like, oh, if
No,
I
I mean,
build some big building, then that's me, and
you know what?
and that's gonna crumble too.
I'm sorry. What I meant to say is our significance comes from our contribution, but we are a spirit soul that is born to give love, and that's in that giving of love. That's what we're leaving behind.
I like that.
Like that.
Mhm.
And those are the people we really remember. Those are the people that stand out. Those are our highlight moments in life. I love that that little nugget today. That is our real gift to the world.
Thank you, Raghunath.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Okay, shall we move on to the next phase of the show?
Yes, it's called the Nectar Ambrosial Pot. Hey, by the way, I'm a Texas Zoomer today. It's 5 a.m. here.
Okay.
I just want you to know that. I'm up a little early.
Congratulations, Raghunath. And now on to the next part of this show.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam dato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our ultimate means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanaptimurandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Hit it, Mara.
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 15, Text 1.
Text 1.
New chapter.
King Pritu's appearance. Is that it?
And coronation.
And coronation. I'm fascinated by the coronation of kings.
Okay. Well, then you're probably going to love this chapter.
Okay. You ever wonder, like, where did the European kings get where did they get their rituals from? Did it come from India? Did it come from or China or these ancient kingdoms?
It's likely. I mean, it's likely that these traditions, there seems to be a lot of commonality.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on with this. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, thus the Brahmanas and their great sages again churned the two arms of King Vena's dead body. As a result, a male and a female couple came out of his arms. What?
Yeah. So again, I think it's speaking somewhat poetically, but it does seem like, in other words, you churn something means there's something like, you churn milk. There's something in there that's not apparent, but that through a certain process, that essential element comes out.
Yeah.
And to me, it sounds like this has something to do with genetics, like in a sense, cloning. You take a genetic part of an organism, and you extract it, right? You churn it out in a sense.
Some type of ancient cloning process.
That's what it sounds like.
Well, and you made a good point. It's the butter thing. Butter and buttermilk are two different foods with two different effects on the body that come from cream, or yogurt, depending on how you make the butter. But they're completely different. So you're taking the part of one body and churning it, so to speak, making a completely different organism out of that body. I like this.
But
for years, I struggled with the churning word because I was thinking like a churning rod. Like, okay, I'm gonna go back and forth and back and forth. That didn't make sense. All right.
Okay. So again, the circumstances that in this lineage of saintly rulers, there was one anomaly in the form of King Vena who was so problematic, and he was so problematic that the Brahmanas had to kind of remove him by killing him, but they did it like with sound somehow. And but then with no ruler, the thieves and rogues were stepping up and taking over, and so they wanted to maintain a king in that same lineage, in that same dynasty. So they took the part of the body of Vena and somehow extracted his DNA, something, and they can not only Pritu is going to be born, but also his female counterpart came out, Archie. So
Lost Sciences.
Lost Sciences.
Quite cool, isn't it? Lost Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear about aliens, they're always experimenting on humans. You know what I mean?
It's interesting.
You always hear about them capturing somebody and experimenting on them.
Probing.
This is like that. These are like lost sciences of the aliens.
Where do
But-
you
but you
always
know-
hear about that, Raghu?
Yeah, you all the time.
You haven't heard about
Not all
that?
the dudes
If I
hear
suppose
about
if you subscribe to certain YouTube channels, you may all the time.
Hey,
Yeah.
Sadaputa talks about that
He does.
in Alien Identity. Sadaputa made this such an interesting point where he said that these people have been abducted by aliens. The stories are all the same. The same thing is happening. A guy doesn't know what a guy becomes missing, like a normal guy. Normal guys, respectable person. They become missing for like 2 weeks. No one knows where he is. Wakes up in a field, doesn't
Time
remember
lapse.
anything. Huh?
Missing time.
Missing time, doesn't know what happened. And they say that when they tell their story of what happened, a psychiatrist would say, it sounds like they're psychotic or something like that. But they're not diagnosed as psychosis. It's diagnosed. All their symptoms are the same symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome. Like they've all had something almost
real
like
happened. Right.
something real tragic happened. And
If they were all faking it, there wouldn't be that commonality in their symptoms.
Yeah.
So
So,
something
and-
went on.
Some type of experimenting with their human body. Oh man. Anyway,
Well,
I'm not
what was interesting about Sadaputin, what he did with that book, Alien Identities,
yeah.
is that his point was to say there's a lot of stuff written in these ancient books that people will automatically write off as mythology, because you never see anything like this, obviously. But he's saying, well, actually, a lot of people do talk about seeing things like this,
Yeah.
but you reject the reports because you've already accepted that they can't be true.
Yeah.
And so here's an example, and it's interesting because I don't know, like when this modern genetic, like DNA, when the concept and the discovery of DNA and all that was, I don't know when that was discovered. Maybe Mara, maybe you can check that out.
Mara probably
first.
knows from her.
But
private
that level of genetic science, I don't know. I don't even know when it developed. But you can imagine before that developed, to hear this reference, it would leave one completely like, what do you mean churned out? Then genetic science develops and you can get an idea, oh, okay, there's an essential element of one's genetic code that's within a body, that's handed down through the generations, that continues in the next, and it can be extracted from a body, and a new body can be created from that, right? That shares the same genetic code. Before genetic science, it wouldn't have made any sense, but now it's kind of like, oh, okay, I can see a connection.
Yeah. We are learning now, just like everybody's talking about breathing. It's such in the conversation. Breathing. What was that book we just read, Mara?
Breath by James Nestor.
By James Nestor.
It's called breath.
It's like everybody's breathing. The yogis would talk about breathing forever, but now that the sciences have quantified it and this is actually what's happening. The yogis knew all this stuff all the time. It's just like you don't have to take
Right. Okay.
apart.
Sure.
You don't have to
Yeah.
dissect a clock to be able to tell time. So the yogis spoke about all these things, and then modern science catches up to it, and now it's valid because modern science has validated it.
So is our date 1957?
Actually, many people believe that, but actually it was discovered in the late 1860s by a Swiss chemist. So the
Okay.
date is actually 1860s.
Wait,
So
what was?
There's
What
a
did
big
I
gap
miss?
there.
About the DNA, the discovery
About
of
DNA.
DNA.
Oh,
So
What about
maybe it
DNA?
was discovered to a certain degree and developed more, But in any case, exactly what you're sharing, Raghunath, is like that whole idea it sound entirely mythological. Like, in other words, if someone would say, I can take a drop of one person and create a new identical person out of that drop, that can't be done. That's mythology. And everything that we're hearing about, so again, I always use the example of the iPhone, which is I look into a piece of glass and I talk to someone on the other. It's a looking glass, that you can look into.
it's a crystal ball of sorts.
I don't know if it's a crystal ball, because crystal ball is about seeing the future, right? But it's a looking glass in the sense that, the idea was you could look into a glass and talk to someone that's somewhere else. And that idea would sound entirely mythological or like a fairy tale until someone figured out the science of how to do it. Right. And something like this churning continuing in a dynasty by churning the essence out of a part of someone's body up until whether it's 1860 whatever or 1957, whenever, that would have sounded entirely mythological. But now science, in a sense, is caught up, and you have a scientific context in which to interpret it.
Now they're churning people everywhere. Everyone's getting churned.
Well, okay. But in any case, so imagine all the other things that we hear about, in the Shastra, in these texts. You could,
Sure.
again, in the next decade, will something else be revealed where we can understand where it gives further context to something else that we've heard about.
We're finally catching up to the past.
Yeah.
They're evolved cultures that have been, we've been devolving. And now we're sort of like technologically through hard science trying to catch up to these mystics.
And even if a skeptic doesn't accept this as being true, right? Like, and I'm not saying that it's proof of anything for sure, but at least let's approach it with some open-mindedness, right? Let's expand our imagination a little bit. Because if you were a skeptic, 200 years ago, and someone started talking about what an iPhone is, you would write that person off, you with this whole attitude and everything, right? You'd completely, write them off as being out of touch, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what? I just want to, what I follow on Instagram?
You just want to ignore what I'm saying.
No. I want to embellish and enhance it. This is what I follow on Instagram. This guy named Derek Olson, megalithic marvels, one word, megalithic marvels. Follow that. Everybody follow that right now. Incredible.
Thank you for enhancing what I was saying, Raghunath. But my point, if I could complete my point, is that we may be an honest person, a sincere person, and really an objective person should be able to expand their imagination and hear about things that sound incredibly far out, and understand that perhaps these did exist at another time, and perhaps they could exist in the future. And a simple example is the iPhone, right? Where you look into pieces of glass and you talk to someone on the other side of the world through it. That's the kind of thing that a skeptic would have written off as absurd. But someone with a broader imagination could imagine it. And ultimately, it was the only thing that was separating the idea and it actually happening was someone discovering the science, right? And so as we hear about these different things, it may be that someone just hasn't discovered the science. Now we're hearing about something that sounds like cloning. It has more context. We could give it another context now because someone's discovered the science. And so everything else that we're reading about, like these flower airplanes, you can write it off as mythology, or maybe just we haven't discovered the science.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And megalithic marvels.
Okay.
My point was to tie this in was like, in not just other sciences, but like the whole these ancient architecture, which is like it's uncanny. It's how have they built these things? And when you see like volumes of, in this case, photos from around the world of things that are actually impossible to build, and there they are, buried under jungles or just like put to the side, trying to push away this idea like people were more evolved. And we just like, no, we're at the pinnacle of evolution. Look, I've got an iPhone watch, or whatever it's called, an iWatch. That is the pinnacle of evolution. No, you gotta just follow that and check out the architecture from around the world. That's just like, how do you do this? How do you move these stones and interlock them? And they're all over the place. And what are we creating now?
Right.
Like, what are we? All right, let's
stuff.
go on with this.
Okay. Text 2.
Text 2. The great sages were highly learned in Vedic knowledge. When they saw the male and female born of the arms of Vena's body, they were very pleased, for they could understand that the couple was an expansion of the plenary portion of Vishnu, the supreme personality of Godhead. So the sages, they knew what was happening, and they had the ability to tell, like, these aren't normal beings being born. They have the ability to see either through astrology or through markings on the body that these are not ordinary beings. These are actually expansions of Vishnu being born, right?
In this case specifically, they're Shaktivesha, which means they were like humans, but especially empowered.
God, we were reading that in Sweet Baby Krishna. God enters the body of particular jivas. Isn't that interesting?
Oh.
God enters the body of particular jivas and makes them act as if they're God. That is such a crazy concept.
Okay, I mean, that was an unusual way of phrasing it, but okay.
Why? Right? He enters the
Yeah,
body.
like he empowers them.
He empowers them. Right.
Okay, let's continue.
All right. Okay.
Text 3.
Text 3. The great sages said, the male is a plenary expansion of the power of Lord Vishnu, who maintains the entire universe. And the female is a plenary expansion of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who is never separated from the Lord.
They came together.
Of the two, the male will be able to expand his reputation throughout the world. His name will be Pritu. Indeed, he will be the first among kings. So what does that mean? The first among kings? There were no kings. Vana was the king. Huh?
He's the best. The best.
Oh, he'll be the first among kings. Like he'll be the, okay, I got you.
Not at the top of the list of good kings.
Okay, I got you. The female has such a the female has such beautiful teeth and beautiful qualities that she will actually beautify the ornaments she wears. I want to see her teeth. Her name will be
quite a smile.
Archie. Her name will be Archie. Isn't that funny? Archie.
Hilarious.
In the future, she will accept King Pritu as her husband. Archie. In the form of King Pritu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared through a part of his potency to protect the people of the world. The goddess of fortune is the constant companion of the Lord, and therefore she has incarnated partially as Archie to become King Pritu's queen. You know, I can't stop thinking of the Archies.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
Try. Try.
The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Viduraji, at that time, all the Brahmanas highly praised and glorified King Pritu, and the best singers of Gandharva Loka, that's the planet of these angelic singers, chanted his glories. The inhabitants of Siddhaloka, that's the planet of perfected beings, showered flowers. And the beautiful women in the heavenly planets danced in ecstasy. Conch shells, bugles, drums, kettle drums vibrated in outer space. You know, we talk about kettle drums a lot. I wonder what that translation is because, you know, kettle drums are sort of a Western thing, but I wonder what
I mean, it's a big
big drum. Okay.
Yeah, big, deep sounding drum.
They vibrated in outer space. Great sages.
I guess a kettle drum is called a kettle drum because it's like a big kettle, right? So
yeah, but you know how you go to South India and there's so many more musical instruments than we, you know, play in tradition art. You know, generally we play the mridanga, you know what I mean, and that's our drum. But you know, when you go to South India, there's all these other drums. They're playing these. You know, I'm curious what their kettle drum looks like. Great sages, forefathers, and personalities from heavenly planets all came to Earth from various planetary systems. Lord Brahma, the master of the entire universe, arrived there, accompanied by all the demigods and their chiefs. Seeing the lines of Lord Vishnu's palm on King Pritu's right hand.
There you go. Bodily
markings. I had that one. So he's checking the palms of King Pritu. And the impressions of the lotus flowers on the soles of his feet, bodily markings. Lord Brahma could understand that King Pritu is a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One whose palm bears the sign of a disc, as well as other lines, should be considered partial representation of or incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Quickly, everybody check your palms. So when they say like it's going to have a lotus or it doesn't mean there's an actual lotus imprint on your hand. There's like different configurations of lines, and they'll call
Are
one.
you sure about that?
Yeah, it doesn't look like an actual.
How do you know?
Because I study palmistry a little. There are things that they will call the star, the club. Just like when you look up in the sky and they'll say, that is what's a famous astrolog?
The Big Dipper.
The Big Dipper. Well, that's easy. That actually looks like a dipper. Mara, come on, help me out here. What's one of those things? They're like, yeah, that's
Orion's belt.
Orion's belt. Like looks nothing like that, but somehow they
But
very
perhaps
creatively.
on an avatar it would look like that.
I don't think it does. I think they give these names to like an asterisk on your hand where lines join and stuff like that, and they'll give that a name, like that's the conch and that's the club and that's the goad.
Okay.
You're like, I don't believe you. You're like, you're
I'm not buying it. You didn't back it up.
It does look like a. Okay, I'm going to ask. You know what? I'm going to ask Drew Lawrence today. I'm going to ask Drew Lawrence. All right. Where are we? Did I finish that text tab?
I don't know if you finished that one.
Yes.
One
whose palm bears the sign of a disc, as well as other such lines, should be considered. Yes. Text 11. The learned brahmanas, who are very, very attached to the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, then arranged for the king's coronation. I hope it talks about the coronation.
Oh, the chapter is all about the coronation.
People from all directions collected all different paraphernalia for this ceremony. Thus, everything was complete.
You
all
like
the rivers.
Raghunath, right?
What's that?
You like a good festival.
I like a good festival. Yes, I do. People from all directions collected all the different paraphernalia for the ceremony. Thus, everything was complete. All the rivers, seas, hills, mountains, serpents, cows, birds, animals, heavenly planets, the earthly planet, and all of the other living entities collected various representations according to their ability to offer to the king.
Presentations.
Thus, the great King Pritu, exquisitely dressed with garments and ornaments, was coronated and placed on the throne. The king and his wife, Archie, who was also exquisitely ornamented, appeared exactly like fire. She was beautiful. Brilliant. Like fire. I wonder what kind of jewels they had on higher planets. Do you think they had the exact same jewels we have here? This is happening. This is happening on Earth.
This is happening on Earth, but people are coming from all over.
Like, do you think they have rubies or sapphires on other planets?
I would imagine they do, but I'm sure they have, just like you go to any other locale, you're going to find different stuff.
Imagine if a meteorite comes and is filled with various jewels. Imagine that.
Could happen.
Mara's
just like jewels.
If you're not listening, if you're not watching on Zoom, you just gotta watch Mara's face through all these. She's like, it's so entertaining. The great sage Indian, my dear Vidura Kuvera, presented the great King Pritu with a golden throne. Imagine that.
I'm imagining it as we
imagine if it was 21 karat, 14 karat. Couldn't be 24 carats too soft. He couldn't sit in that. It'd have to be some type of 18 karat. The demigod Varuna presented him with an umbrella. I wonder if he was like, I gave me a throne. You're giving me an umbrella? Come on.
It's a special umbrella.
It's a special umbrella. Okay. And constantly sprayed fine particles of water.
No, the umbrella constantly sprayed. It said that constantly
very
sprayed.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Like a cooling umbrella.
It's a misting umbrella. Yeah.
That is very cool. That is an invention waiting to happen.
And it was as brilliant as the moon, so it had this effulgence to it too.
Ooh. An umbrella that gives. When we talk about umbrella, it's it's very hot, so we give it. It's like a parasol.
Yeah.
That's gives probably a scented mist, and it glows somewhat. Very interesting.
It doesn't just glow somewhat; it glows as brilliantly as the moon.
Well, that's a little too bright. I think that might be.
There's a skeptic.
Maybe an analogy.
It says as brilliant as the moon, right there. Didn't say brilliant like the moon.
Brilliant as the moon. That's very bright.
Yeah.
The demigod of air, Vayu, presented King Pritu with 2 whisks, chamaras. The king of religion, Dharma, right? That's Yamaraj, presented him with a flower garland, which would expand his fame. Imagine that, a magical flower garland. I wonder what kind of flowers they were. If the flowers were magical or it was just blessed somehow. And the superintendent of death.
The king of heaven, Indra.
The king of heaven, Indra, presented him with a valuable helmet. I wonder if that's a crown. And the superintendent of death, Yamaraj, presented him with a scepter with which to rule the world. Is a scepter just more, you think it's more symbolic, or is it like a club, like you can fight with, like Hanuman?
I don't know. Yeah.
You know, there are scepters that are just, because when I was in drum major camp, you get a scepter. The drum major carries a scepter around, and they spin it around and throw it in the air and throw it in the ground and conduct with the scepter, but you wouldn't club somebody with it. Whereas
Mara,
they
could
do
you check out scepter and what scepters are all about?
It says it's an ornamented staff carried by rulers on ceremonial occasions as a symbol of sovereignty. So it sounds like you don't fight with it.
You don't fight with it.
But maybe originally you did. Who knows?
You break your scepter. Lord Brahma presented King. I want to see what Brahma. This is like a birthday party. Look what he got from all these people. Lord Brahma presented King Pritu with a protective garment made of spiritual knowledge.
Yeah, well, what does that mean? I don't know. I have no idea.
It's subtle. It's subtle stuff. It's
subtle.
almost like, what was that thing? What was that? What was that movie, Mara? The Cloak, the Invisible Cloak.
I don't know.
Come on, you guys. Don't you watch movies?
Invisible Cloak.
Somebody knows on the message board.
Was it a recent movie or?
No. Yes, reasonably recent, like in 20 years.
Harry
Cloak.
Potter?
Harry Potter, The Cloak.
Okay.
I've only watched the first half of the first one. I haven't never watched the beginning to end. Okay, so we got a protective garment made of spiritual knowledge. Saraswati, the wife of Brahma, gave him a transcendental necklace. Have no idea what that is. Lord Vishnu presented him with a Sudarshan disc. What? And Lord Vishnu's wife, the goddess of fortune, gave him imperishable opulences. Opulences that couldn't be perished. Interesting. Lord Shiva came and gave him a sword within a sheath marked with 10 moons. I would love to see that sword. And his wife, the goddess Durga, presented him with a shield marked with 100 moons. So he's got a matching shield and sword. That's a gift.
He's coming down in the Moon Dynasty, I'm assuming. We could look at the family tree.
Oh, interesting. Mara, you ever want to get me a present? Birthday, whatever. Sword with moons.
Got it.
Got it. Take noted. Lord, okay. The moon demigod, Chandra, presented him with horses made Presented him with horses made of nectar. What?
Soma offered horses of nectar.
What does that mean?
I don't know exactly.
And the demigod Vishvakarma. Mara, who's Vishvakarma? Quick.
Oh, I don't know.
Vishvakarma
think of the megalith. What did you
megalithic marvels?
The architect. The
architect of the demigods. The architect of the demigods presented him with a very beautiful chariot. You think he'd give him a palace?
With a special chariot. Takes, in other words, Vishvakarma, he's like a designer, right?
Yeah.
So it's not he doesn't only design houses. He can design. It's like a guy that's an architect that can design a house and can also design a car.
Yeah, and when he designs them, they're quite mystical too.
Yes.
Okay, Mara. Here's a quick trivia question. Vishvakarma is the demigod of the architect of the demigods. Who is the architect of the demons?
She doesn't know.
I don't know.
Kaustubha, help him out. Help her out.
Maidanova.
Mayadanova, the architect of the demons. Who got that right on the board there?
Nobody.
Nobody.
I was waiting for somebody to help.
You're waiting
She
for
was-
someone to phone a friend.
Yeah.
The demigods always travel in. The demigod of fire, Agni, presented him with a bow made of what? Of horns of goats and cows. Interesting. The sun god presented him with arrows as brilliant as sunshine. Very cool. The predominating deity of Burloka. Oh, this is good. Presented him with slippers filled with mystic power. You can't make this stuff up. Slippers of mystic power.
They could transport you from one place to another mystically.
Are you just speculating, or can those slippers do that?
Yes, that's what they do.
That's the original ruby slippers. The demigods from outer space brought him presentation.
But again, like just going back to the point that I was making earlier, if 200 years ago we were reading this and it said, so and so offered him a mystic piece of glass through which you could talk to people and thousands of miles away, it would have sounded ridiculous. It would have, and here we're saying someone could put on slippers that can transport you, and it sounds ridiculous. But maybe we just haven't caught up with the science.
We got to get to this point where we say, I don't know.
There you go.
Because
That's
we're
the point.
living
Just
in
a
a
little
world
humility, right?
that is impossible because I know this. What do I know? I live in a little tiny box. I don't know. Here I am in Nashville. If I grew up in Nashville, I would think everybody in the world dresses as crazy as they do in Nashville. But they don't. This is unique to this place where everybody's about to become a rock star. And if I grew up in upstate New York and I never traveled, and guess what? People didn't travel that much before let's speak of the airplane. I didn't ride an airplane until I was 19. Everybody's on planes now.
Just a few sailors,
And 100 years ago, if I wanted to go to New Jersey, that's like a month-long trip to go to New Jersey. You're going to New Jersey. No one knows when you're getting back. You can't leave a message on their phone. They have no phones. You're not staying at Motel 6. You're staying in an inn. 150 years ago, that was like a whole different world. So if all I know is upstate New York and I'm not a traveler, then if I heard of something like a quetzal, a peacock, a canary, those are unbelievable compared to the turkeys, right?
Canary's not such a big deal, but peacock.
Right, not a canary, a peacock, a quetzal, right? Or some fantastic bird. If all I know are turkeys, I can't even believe a peacock exists. It's too foreign. What to speak of an alligator?
Giraffe.
Forget it. Huh?
Shoebill?
Shoebill bird.
Duck-billed
Imagine if you saw
platypus.
your first shoebill. Hey, I always use the example of when Hannibal came and invaded, from where was he from? Carthage. He came and invaded Rome. He came over through France, through the Swiss Alps, riding African elephants. Imagine seeing an elephant for the first time.
That would be mind-blowing for sure.
Mind-blowing. I would just surrender. You're my lord
You got
now.
one of those.
Take everything
I don't know
I
what
have.
you're going to pull out of your pocket.
Yeah. It's like, who is this guy come?
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is we don't know anything. We got to get to this point where we say, I don't know.
That's
Could there
that's
be
being called
magical slippers?
honest.
Maybe there's magical slippers. I don't know.
That's actually the objectivity that science requires.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the problem with science nowadays. There's this information filter. And even though we have all these megalithic marvels, and even though there's so many anomalies and so many repeated stories of the people that are left in a field and their time is missing, we just write it all off because it doesn't fit in with our paradigm of reality.
Mhm.
Just like forbidden archaeology. If you want to read a great book, Google search forbidden archaeology.
Let's
discover.
finish up
Okay.
Let's finish up this chapter.
Okay. I don't know why I'm so hyped today.
You're hyped. Did you have some kind of
I woke
high
up
caffeine
hyped.
drink?
I did 6 rounds of pranayama and took a
When you get
freezing
an
cold
audience,
shower.
you get hyped. Nice.
There's no audience. It's just Cindy Lunsford here.
She's your audience today.
She's half asleep. She's,
Okay.
okay. The
Text
demigods who always travel in outer space gave King Pritu the arts to perform dramas, sing songs, play musical instruments, and disappear at his will. What? He could disappear at will. You know what? I heard. Anyway, let this go. The ocean offered him a conch shell produced
The
from
great
the ocean.
sages also offered him.
The sages
infallible
also offered
blessings.
him infallible blessings, blessings that would not fail. The seas, mountains, and
The
rivers.
ocean offered him.
A conch shell produced from the ocean. I've read that, but out of order. The seas, mountains, and rivers gave him room to drive his chariot without impediments. And a sutta, a Magadha, and a Vundi offered prayers and praises. They all presented themselves before him to perform their respective duties. Thus, when the greatly powerful King Pritu, the son of Vena, saw the professionals before him to congratulate them, he smiled, and with gravity of the vibrating sounds of clouds, he spoke as follows. King Pritu said, O gentle Sutta, Magadha, and other devotees offering prayers, the qualities of which you have spoken are not distinct in me. Why then should you praise me for all these qualities when I do not shelter these features? I do not wish for these words meant for me to go in vain, but it is better that they be offered to someone else. It's very humble.
Yeah,
Oh, gentle.
right off the bat, we're getting a picture that he's very different than Vena, right?
Yeah. He's humble. He's overlooking his good qualities, and they're all seeing his good qualities.
Oh, gentle reciters.
O gentle reciters, offer such prayers in due course of time, when the qualities of which you have spoken actually manifest themselves in me. The gentle who offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead do not attribute such qualities to a human being who does not actually have them. And here we go again. Even our great qualities, a devotee sees them as they're not even mine. If
They're
I'm very
woven into me by others. Okay,
by God,
coming
ultimately.
Coming full circle.
You know, you're artistic, you're thoughtful, you're creative, you're entertaining, you're skillful, you're good with your hands, you're good with your mind, you're mathematical. All of your good qualities are gifts from God. They're not yours to get proud of. They're ours to appreciate that they too, like everything else, is on loan to me for a short time.
I've got a nugget for you, Raghunath.
Give us some nugget.
No, I'll share it. Maybe we'll use that as a nugget next Monday or something like that. But I got a nugget related to what you're talking about right now. I'm going to hold that nugget.
Tell me. Oh, you're not going to give me the nugget now?
No, I was saying maybe we use it as a nugget on Monday, but it's related to what you're talking about right now. You want it now? I'll give it to you now.
I'm hungry for that nugget.
Well, the nugget that I was reading, honestly, the source of it, I don't really know, but I thought it was interesting. But it was talking about Vedic culture. And it was saying in Vedic culture, you bow your body to your parents, right? Like we definitely don't do this in America, but like in India, you had this, and to some degree, I'm sure it's still there. But like, in the morning, you offer your respect to your parents, right? You bow down, right?
I wonder if Krishna Drew, who's Indian, I wonder if she's actually bowed to her mother, like bowed down.
Yeah.
They probably touched their feet. Touching the feet's a big one.
But in any case, so they're saying that you bow your body to your parents because they gave you the body.
Yeah. Like, thank you.
Right.
You gave me a body.
Yeah. And then you bow your mind to your teachers because they created your mind, in a sense, right?
Yep.
And what you're left with is what you actually own. In other words, my body isn't mine. It's as you're saying, in a sense, it's on loan. It was given by my parents, right? Yep. My mind even, it's been developed by my teachers. What do I have left that's my own? That's your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's you, underneath it all is the consciousness.
Mara, can I give you an order?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Next time you see Papa Tony, you are to go to him,
bow down,
touch his feet. You don't even have to bow down. You don't have to get on your knees. Just touch his feet and say, thank you for my body.
Okay.
Thank you for my body.
Thank you for my body. See what he says.
Why
All
don't we got just a couple, 2 or 3 verses left here, Raghunath. We can wrap up
right,
this
let's
chapter.
do this. We're over time, but let's do this.
Is it 24? That right?
24. How could an intelligent man, competent enough to possess such exalted qualities, allow his followers to praise him if he did not actually have them? Praising a man by saying that if he were educated, he might have become a great scholar or a great personality is nothing but a process of cheating. A foolish person who agrees to accept such praises does not know that such words simply insult him. And we could go on with this. We could tease this out. As a person with a sense of honor and magnanimity does not like to hear about his abominable actions, a person who is very famous and powerful does not like to hear himself praised. Ooh, that's a great like metric for how magnanimous you are. You don't like to hear yourself praised. Why?
Yeah.
Because we immediately deeply understand both our body and our mind have been, and our good qualities have been gifted to us. So I'm not going to take pride in them. King Pritu continued, my dear devotees, headed by the sutta, just now, I'm not very famous for my personal activities because I've not done anything praiseworthy you could glorify. Therefore, how could I engage you in praising my activities exactly like children?
Right.
Woohoo. Mara,
Yes.
give us a takeaway. Give us some valuable takeaways.
Weave love into the lives of others.
Be a weaver of love.
The depth of your spirituality is shown through your relationship with others.
All right. Okay.
We are our contributions. Our legacy is our desire to give love. A sincere, broad-minded person should be able to suspend their skepticism.
Well, that's a mug. Not.
We're discovering lost sciences to catch up to the past. Science requires
That's a t-shirt. Let's try to figure out the worst t-shirt we can make. Go ahead. We're discovering lost science. Hey, go on.
Science requires objectivity and admitting what you don't know.
Oh, that's a great t-shirt. Okay.
Our great qualities and talents are gifts from God.
Okay, our takeaways have to be t-shirts or mugs.
No,
Do
they
they?
don't.
No?
No.
Oh, I thought that's how we started takeaways. No?
Write something meaningful on your gravestone.
That's a
There you
t-shirt.
go.
Okay, we'll take that. Thanks, everybody. Man, we had a good message board today. I hadn't even looked at it. Kaustubha, I didn't even look at the message board today. What do you think of
Good
that?
for you.
Yeah. Although I feel like I'm missing out. Like they have a whole
You can
thing
read it
going.
now. You can read it later.
Look,
You
Danny
can save it. You know-
Kazakowski says, Raghu, there are meteorites filled with gems. Brahine is a palisite, a stony iron meteorite. Peridote gems, often shattered into angular or shard-like shapes, are often brown to emerald green, but mostly amber in color. What is she talking about? She's talking
In other words, meteorites have landed on Earth and they're full of gems, as you were wondering about.
imagine that landing on your front yard. Oh,
I don't
anyway,
have a
thanks
front
for
yard.
joining us, everybody. We're going to be. Oh, we're not. Wait, tomorrow's no show. Sunday there. We're doing Q&A Sunday though. I'm sorry
Yes,
for
sir.
no show tomorrow. I'm excited to see all the Indiana people. I'm excited to see all the Atlanta people the next day. And you know what? We got to get Veda Sar on the show. The temple president of Atlanta. Such a cool guy. I'm about to have lunch with him. Very interesting story. He's either got to be an interview or a walk on Wednesday at least. You know his story.
You told me about it. Yeah.
He was at Mara. This guy is amazing.
He's the one
Anyway,
who got lost and ended up at
he got lost.
Airport.
He got lost. He got lost as a child and was roaming around India with his 8-year-old brother, and he was 5. And he ended up getting taken care of by the Krishna boarding school in Mayapur, and he grew up there. He got lost.
Then he became a headmaster of the school.
Then he became a headmaster of the school. And now he lives, and yeah, so he's from a village in India, and they were just screwing around, and he got on a train, and he got lost.